Hi, my name is Robert. Please read the comments in the About section of this video. It has valuable information and updates. My YouTube channel has a disclaimer video that I encourage you to watch. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you found what you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. Today I'm not doing a whole lot. Went to our church services. Working on cleaning up my YouTube channel and completing videos that are not fully edited. And one of the viewers, subscribers that I subscribe to as well, named Who Said Tyler, is in town. So we're going to meet to have lunch, and he's going to be on his way. And I'm going to run a couple of errands, visit grandmother. So I'm driving my 740 because I know he recently purchased a red block, a 760. So he can see my 740. Yes, I'm here with Who Said Tyler and Uncle Phil, passing through the great New Mexico. And there he is, folks, the legendary Who Said Tyler. Who Said Tyler? Started out today packing up a strut assembly with knuckle and all of that stuff for a guy. Took it to the post office and they said it would cost, man, around between $55 and $75 to ship it. Now that I'm done with that, I'm working on the head for the donor car, replacing the valve stem seals and lapping the valves. I decided to do it a little bit different this time. I just used my clamp and pulled all of one side, all of the, heck, I guess it's the exhaust side. I pulled the valve stem seals, the valves, the springs. They're the old valve stem seals, and the rubber is not totally gone, but they're pretty much gone. And I pulled them out with those new pliers that I bought from Harbor Freight, hose pliers. And I'm going to clean up the stems of the valves with my little rotor tool that I got from Harbor Freight. With I'm going to use the brass brush on there because brass is not as hard as this metal, and this should clean the carbon and gunk off of them and not scratch the valves themselves. So these are supposed to be sodium-filled exhaust valves for a turbo head. Okay, I'm on my patio cleaning off these valves, and I tried to use that Dremel style tool and clean off the valve with the brass brush spinning, and the brush was actually coming apart, throwing the brushes into my skin, sticking out of my arm and hand and stuff like that. So that thing only was able to clean mostly just about one, and that's what the valve looks like that it did clean off. The valve seal sits about this far and probably rides an inch, if that. So that valve stem seal is just riding in this part of the valve. Then you got your seat down there that needs to be cleaned. I'm going to lap that. Now, after the brush wore out, I started using unfortunately a razor blade to scrape that carbon off. I tried not to scrape too hard, not to damage the valve. I don't think I damaged the valve. Then I brushed it with the stainless steel brush, not hard enough to scratch the valve, I don't think. So anyway, that's what a clean one looks like after I clean it with my brush. And this is what the valves look like before I do anything to them, any cleaning or anything. Let that come in focus there. So that's what the valves look like before I clean them. And I just don't think the seals could take a good seat on that crust and grime and carbon buildup. Of course, these are the exhaust valves. They're taking more heat, but I think if you use synthetic oil, the odds of you getting this kind of buildup and gunk on them is slim. And the seal probably just rides on about a ½ inch right in there. So let me go ahead and finish cleaning these last two off and take these to be lapped and put them back in the head. Alright, now I have all the valve stems cleaned where the valves hit the seals. I do not clean off the bottom of the valves where they're just exposed to the piston area. I don't think that's necessary. But if you want a less aggressive way of cleaning these things, you may want to spray them down with oven cleaner. Let them sit an hour or 6 or whatever, and then brush it off with a brass brush, the oven cleaner. Rinse them off, dry them off, oil them up. Next, I'm going to set these valves in the corresponding slots in the head that I got them out of, and I'm going to lap them in the head. Well, I'm willing to guess that this vehicle had a burnt valve somewhere along the road. Looks like a couple of these valves are different, especially on the intake side over here. You got those 2 valves there look different than all the other valves in the engine, and I haven't pulled those yet on the intake side. But all the way up here on piston, I guess this is probably number 1. Those 2 valves are definitely different, may have been replaced in this head. Okay, so this is cylinder number 1. That's the exhaust valve that was not lapped. That's the one that was lapped. You want to make sure that the surface is clean and smooth, and you want to do the same for the valve. Look at the valve, look the whole way around it. Make sure it don't have any pitted surfaces on there, because that could be the start of that valve burning. So if you see any pits on it, you want to keep lapping it, try to get that smooth, and if a pit is deep, go ahead and replace that valve with another one. When valves are functioning in the head and the springs pull them into the head, they need to make airtight seal so that they don't heat up and burn and chip, crack, and break. Okay, this valve here's got a couple of pitted spots on it, so I'm probably going to replace it, because that pit could turn into a burn in 10, 20, 30,000 miles. The one on the left has the very minor pits. The one on the right is one I pulled out of another head that had that large little pit in it. So those are examples of the pits you want to watch out for in valves.
Maybe she'll get some of her friends hooked on juice.
Looking at this head a little more, I'm starting to think this head was rebuilt, because it looked like the valve stem seats have been replaced in it, especially on this exhaust side. I could be wrong, but I would say that they probably were replaced at one time. I never pulled the spring seats out, so they're still down in there, and I set the valve stem seals, the new ones, down in there, and now I'm going to slide the valves up through the bottom of them, put the springs on, put the spring seats on the top, compress them, and put the keepers on them. And this is the new Victorine's valve stem seals that I have that's going in this head. You notice they have a spring there that helps them keep contact to the valves. The valve is down in the head, the seal is seated in the head, and these valve stem seals sit on the stems like that and ride up and down probably about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch as the lobes press on the hydraulic lifters and push the valves open and close. So the oil is supposed to stay on top of the valve stem seal, and the lower part is the compression side. I'm outside to clean up the intake valves. These are the 2 that look like they were replaced in this vehicle. They have a different top than the others, have some kind of part number in there. and they're not near as caked up and grummy as the exhaust valves were. So let me go ahead and clean these up and get them in the head. Alright, I got all the valves lapped, reinstalled. Now I'm going to tap them in place with the round handle. Just a little tap, kind of a sealing tap on them. Kind of like knocking on a door. I'm going to do all of them like that. Then I'm going to pour the coolant into the intake ports. See if I have any leaking into the valve area. I should have none. Absolutely no leaking into the valve area when you pour coolant into the intake ports. Then I'm going to dump that out and pour coolant into the exhaust ports and make sure none of my exhaust valves leak. So let me go ahead and do that and call it a night. Starting out today, back on top of the world, going to help a guy up here with a vehicle or two that he has something going on with. Let's see what we got on the schedule. Today I'm helping the guy with his Ford truck. I think it might be a 72, 73, 74, hell, I don't know. But the thing, he's just going to guide me through what he wants done. He's got the carburetor up here, and he wants to reinstall the fuel pump. And then when we get the fuel pump in, we're going to install a couple of fuel filters. One that goes in the truck, the other that will be a additional one that he can actually see the fuel filter and know if it's being contaminated or whatnot. So let me get some details and get started. Here's the actual fuel pump. You see the line connectors there, and I think this is put inside the motor or something somehow, and it's ratcheted to pump the fuel. So let's see how this goes. Get it bolted on. He has a new gasket for it there, and I think he's looking for some bolts for it. If you come down the front of the vehicle, under the vehicle, on the driver's side of it, just behind the crank and up a little bit, you'll see where that fuel pump connects to the engine. It's got a bolt and a nut. Then you have a fuel line here that screws into it, and you got this other fuel line here that screws into it. This fuel line is damaged, so the owner is seeing if he has some fuel line available for us to get this back together. So let me work on getting this fuel pump bolted up to that. We're going to try to put this on here without putting any kind of gasket seal or anything on here.
No, you can't. Nothing's going to be compatible.
So this should fit in there somehow, maneuvered in there, and bolt it to the block. So let me maneuver this up and in there. Okay, I got the fuel pump bolted on. They were 13 millimeter or half-inch bolts. I got the top one started. Then I pulled down real hard on it. Got the bottom one started and tightened the bottom one up about halfway. Then I tightened the top one up all the way. And then I tightened the bottom one down all the way. Now this fuel pump works kind of strange. You've seen that arm on it. The arm slides down under part of the crank. And as the crank spins around, it has a bump on it that actually pushes that arm down far and lets it lift back up as it passes. And that bump in the crank actually presses that fuel pump arm down, lets it back up, down, lets it back up, and that causes the fuel pump action in this. So when you go in with this fuel pump, you got to go down on an angle a little bit to get it under that crank. You have to pull this pump down kind of hard to get that bottom bolt started, because that pump is really hard for us, a human strength, to activate, but it's easy for the crank to activate. Now that the fuel pump is on and in place, I got to hook up the fuel lines. This line coming from the tank goes here. The other line goes up to the carburetor, but we got to get some new fuel line here because this stuff is all cracked up, brittle, hard, etc. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.